Hey everybody, so a ton of you commented on my last game asset art tutorial asking if I could make a video on how to make pixel art with the Stable Diffusion AI. So I sat down, did a lot of research, read a lot of Reddit tips, and I think I figured out a way to get pixel art for video games out of the AI, but I have to say I'm looking forward to what the future holds because I believe Stable Diffusion is not trained on a ton of pixel art as it is, so it does get a little finicky. With that said, I'm going to show you today how to get a result like this. Now, I think it's decent if you're like working on a prototype for a farming simulator or something and need some fun art. You can use these techniques, but of course you may be thinking, I've seen better pixel art made with AI. That may be true, but I think the advantage to my technique is also not just getting results that look like pixel art, but that actually are pixel art. To explain what I mean, this is actually a scene that is 320 by 180 pixels big. Now, you may know Stable Diffusion spits out images that are 512 by 512 pixels tall, even if they look like they're low res because you made it look like pixel art. So I want to give you results that you can actually use in your video games. And without further ado, let's get started on that. So for this, you only need two softwares. First of all, Stable Diffusion, obviously, that's the AI that's going to generate our images. I have a local installation running on my NVIDIA GPU. If you either don't have a strong enough GPU or don't have an NVIDIA GPU, there's plenty of other options, for example, the cloud-based services. So don't worry, just check out the links in the description on how to get Stable Diffusion and follow those guides. There's many different options, and I'm sure you'll find one that'll fit you. And second of all, you need an image manipulation program. This could be Photoshop, that's what I'm using, but could easily also be GIMP or whatever you feel comfortable with. We're not going to do anything super advanced here, so use anything. We're going to start in Photoshop. So I have a couple projects set up here. First of all, a main scene where I just put all the generated elements together to check the style, see if all the different elements look similar enough that I can use them in my game or whatever project I'm working on. Then I have a 128 by 128 pixel square, a 32 by 32 square, and a 16 by 16. So these are our three different sizes that I'm going to be working with. The biggest one is for buildings and trees and large elements. The 32 by 32 is for characters. We're going to make a little farmer today. And 16 by 16 is for animals or vegetables or whatever you can pick up, a watering can, for example. So smaller items that we can use. And without further ado, let's fill up our scene. So first we go into Stable Diffusion. Now there are a couple different prompts that I've figured out get us good results. And I think some of them you'll find surprising. So pixel art, in fact, is not in all of them because Stable Diffusion isn't trained specifically in pixel art. So it's not incredible at it. We do need to kind of coax it into getting results we want. But first, let's start with the easiest one, which, in my opinion, is the buildings. So for buildings, I figured out we can start with pixel art. So pixel art of a house, for example, if that's what we want, I'm going to make a little farmhouse, a little cabin, kind of like in Stardew Valley. Make it colorful, make it warm and cozy. That gives us the nice little autumn colors, right? And now our styles, right? So Nintendo has a ton of good pixel art. Pokemon has great pixel art. Stardew Valley, like I said. Harvest Moon is a farming simulator, that's great. And for buildings, I like Animal Crossing. Not for characters, because their characters are often animals, so we start getting people with cat ears and stuff if we use that for characters. And now something kind of strange. So I'm going to add isometric perspective, even though we don't want that in this project. So isometric pixel art is this style. It's kind of rotated, right? We see it from the side a little bit. It looks kind of semi-3D. And despite me not wanting that, I want kind of a top-down Pokemon look, right? So like this, we're going to do it because it just seems to help in the prompt and is worth putting in. Now, sampling steps, I found around 50 is good. If you bring it up to 50, you can go beyond that. But with pixel art, we don't really need to. So let's use that. And batch count, I'm going to turn up to 6, just so we have a couple options to choose from. And let's choose. And here we go. So we already have some great suggestions. I love this building. Look at how cool that is. It's very Animal Crossing style. We have this, which is kind of a mess. This one's actually isometric, so we can't use that. And there's this one, which is also a very cute idea. It's more cabin-like. This one is a little too strange, but could also be used. So if we pick the one we like the best, which I think is this one actually, we can now send it to image, which is the other algorithm. So let's copy our prompt, send it over, and crop it so it better understands what part of the image we like, because the term Stardew Valley tends to put some little farmland and bushes around it, so we don't want that. Paste in the prompt, turn the sampling steps back up to 50, and just run it again so we get some more options in this exact style with the denoising strength at around 60. You know, give it some freedom to be creative. And remember to turn the batch up. And look at that, we now have some different options for our house. That one's kind of nice. I really like the lighting here. You can tell it really took Animal Crossing as an inspiration. This is kind of solid. It's a good cabin with some wood. This one's a little soft and pillowy. That one's friendly. I like the colors in that one. And this one kind of messed up the roof. So the one I like the most is actually this one here. It's very solid. I love the colors. And now I think it's time for some Photoshop. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click and copy this. Go into Photoshop, go into our biggest project here, the 128 by 128, and paste it in. Now, what we have to make sure when we resize it down is we have the interpolation to nearest neighbor. Otherwise, it's not going to look like pixel art. It's going to rescale, it's going to scale down the picture and make everything look super soft. So we don't like that. Make sure it's set to nearest neighbor and scale it down. And there we go. So the reason I use these projects is it's pixel perfect now. We can cut this out and import it into a video game and the actual pixel size will be true. So if we have a character that's smaller than this, it'll be the right size in this scene here. And that wouldn't happen if we took the images straight from stable. Good, so that's decently pretty. The door's kind of messed up, so I'm going to check out if any of the other results have a better door. I like this one. It might not match the style. More of a door, that's more of a door. This one's like a window, it's weird. So let's take this door here. We can copy that, bring it in. Can turn down the opacity to match it up better. And now we cut out the door specifically. So in Photoshop, you could use the object selection tool, otherwise just the lasso tool. So I'm going to use the object selection tool. I also like that little step there, so I'm going to take that with me. And mask it on top. And see, suddenly it looks much nicer. That's pretty cool. So next we're going to have to get rid of the background. Same thing, you can use the lasso tool or any other tool to select it, the whole building this time. You can mask that and just clean it up a little bit. So if we want to do individual edits, like on a pixel level, make sure you use the pencil tool, not the paintbrush tool, because the pencil tool will have hard edges. It's not going to alias as much. So to give you an example, if I select the brush tool, right, make a new layer and set that to 1 pixel size and the hardness to 100, it's still not going to look perfect, right? You see how it's kind of soft. We don't want that. If we want to edit on a pixel level, switch to pencil, set all the same hardness and size to 1, and it has a solid line. So that's why I use the pencil tool. And now we're just going to clean it up, make sure it has a hard edge, so we can also try to cut it out a little better, and then we'll move on. If you're going to use the lasso tool, normally, also make sure it's not anti-aliasing. You can see that setting up top here. Same with the paint bucket. No anti-aliasing and tolerance up high, so you can just fill it. So look at that. I mean, if you want to check to see if you've really got everything, you can give it a background color like pink. Yeah, this is still kind of soft here, to just check your edges, and then we can try to bring it over into our main scene and just place it where we want it. Make sure on your export that it's transparent and save it as a PNG. And there we go. Our first element in the scene is done. Now we'll move on to something a little more difficult, namely characters. Let's make a person. So for this, I noticed that pixel art does not yield good results. It really messes it up. It doesn't look good. It's either too simple or something else entirely. So the tricks I figured out for people is the following, with some help from Reddit, of course, and you lovely people. So if you enter pixelated full body, let's do farmer, looking right, give it some direction, right? Then add character icon, concept art, some terms like harvest moon. Don't use Stardew Valley because for some reason it always like puts whole farms into the image, so don't use it here. And the classics, you know, artstation, all the kind of stuff that works really well. 2D game art helps, and now important, pixel perfect. Gives you the corners much, much better. Detailed shading. And now I'm going to enter an artist name. Now, before you get angry, this artist died in the 1980s and just happens to make pixel art results look really good. Not a pixel artist, not working currently, and is just something that people found helps the pixel art results. So, sampling steps, everything the same. Let's see what comes out. And here we go. You see, we actually got some pretty cool results. I like my man here. He's cool. He's good. These guys are all looking the wrong way. He's more painted than anything else. This guy's pretty messed up, but he's kind of cool. I like him. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put him over into image to image with the same prompt and just get some variations on him. And here we go. We're getting some pretty fun results, right? So he's funky. And I like him the most. He has the most detail, although I like the clothes on him more. So we'll do the same, right? We'll bring this over into Photoshop, and let's put this into the 32 by 32 project. You can really tell we don't have very much space, so that's why I'm not looking too much at detail here. And let's put him down. And we already lost a ton, right? So this is not a ton of space. We're going to have to go in a little more pixelated and draw in some more stuff, you know, return his eyes, give his eyes back, and cut him out. So to make sure we don't have any, you know, soft edges, you can select your mask and put a threshold on it and just make sure that everything is hard like this, hard edged like this. And now let's give him his eyes back. See, that's kind of cute. All right, let's bring him over into our scene. And here's our little dude. There he is, standing there looking very surprised. Now, I'm sure you've noticed, this is very far from what you need to have a character sprite in a video game. So what I would suggest, if you want him moving, you know, actually walking, getting a walk cycle, you are going to have to get into how pixel art is really made, like how you actually draw pixel art, because out of Stable Diffusion, you're not quite yet going to get reliable results in different poses of the same exact character. So I recommend you maybe cut this guy apart into different parts, like arms and legs and stuff, try to animate him like that, or like create different frames manually in Photoshop, or just, you know, use Stable Diffusion as an inspiration on what your character looks like in the original design process, and then kind of draw it manually. It's still a great heads up or a great help to use Stable Diffusion in this process, but we're not quite there yet to generate entire sprite sheets. I recommend some other tutorials for that and just more traditional pixel art techniques. But let's continue for the other objects, right? We still need some decoration like a tree and, of course, the background textures. Let's get on those first. For textures, it's quite similar. You're going to use a similar prompt to this because the pixelated and the pixel perfect things work. But let's just go through it again. So what we want is pixelated soil to cover the ground. And we'll use it again. Concept art, harvest moon, Pokemon, artstation, 2D game art, pixel perfect, very important. And let's add some detailed. We'll leave the sampling steps at 50, batch count at 6, and generate. Great. So as you can see, this process is not perfect. The results are really strange sometimes. You could use this, for example, maybe get some dirt out of here, but you may have to run this a few times with slight adjustments depending on what you get. So let's just run it again. Now we have some more workable things, right? So there's a little bit of soil here. We could get some out of here, right? That's all I'm going for. This looks kind of nice. This is some kind of farming simulator. That's weird. So now we're going to send this to image, again with copying the prompt. And crop it way down onto something like this. Just some patch of dirt. And now this is where the magic happens. We want this to tile, right? It's going to be a texture. So we just hit this tiling button and it's going to make a tileable texture. Turn the denoising strength down. We don't want it changing too much. Let's go 4. And there we go. Now we have some pretty neat soil textures. There's a little bit of green in them. I guess we didn't crop enough. So we can just pick the one we like best and put it back. I actually kind of like this one because it has a couple rocks in it. So let's send that one back in, crop it a little more though, so we don't have too much grass in there. Soil with stones. Give it some more denoising strength and play around with that. This one has some dirt and stuff in there. That's kind of cool. Some rocks. Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's take this one, because obviously we're not done yet. We are going to put this in the smallest project we have. Like really bring it way down, so we're almost not even going to have very much of a result in there. And paint over whatever we don't like, right? I mean, this is a simple process now. I don't love this rock here, so, or grass patch or whatever it is, so we can just kind of paint over it. No harm done. It looks like any other part, right? Excellent. So what we can do now, in Photoshop at least, is save this as a pattern. So for that, we can go to Edit, Define Pattern, and just call it Soil 16 by 16. Now, this is just a process we need for the main scene, right? This is not anything you need for your video game. And if we want to just fill with that, we can go into Patterns, have our new thing, and just fill it in. Right, so now you can tell it's not perfect. It's not really tiling super well, right? It's a little messy. So if we want, we could change it around a little bit. You know, just edit this so it's not quite so obviously tiled. That's what I'm going to leave it for now. This is just our soil, so I want kind of a little patch here that maybe has some soil. Next, let's do some grass. The same method. I'm just going to time-lapse through this. All right, this obviously needs a ton of polish, but you can really tell just in this mock-up of textures, you can change up some colors and just adjust everything individually and check your style before you put it in your game. So I kind of think that's pretty cool. You know, just make it look cool, bring everything together. But one thing is missing. So one more tip that's a little different from the other things I've shown you right now is making icons and stuff, right? So little veggies, small objects, watering cans, and things that are just the smallest kind of thing in this 16 by 16 field. So let's get on that, and then you can start with your own project. So go into Stable Diffusion, and go back to text to image, and enter the following. So what I realized is, let's say we want to make a carrot, right, a small carrot. You use the word icon, carrot icon, and game item after concept art. So game item is important, and 2D game art remains, pixel perfect remains, and detailed shading is nice, and the word inventory. And that way you might get some cool options. Sometimes you just need to generate some more. Just try again. Much better. So this is closer to what we want. I think I'll remove the Pokemon from the prompt, but I will take this, send it to image, where we will continue to generate some carrots with a lot of freedom. Yep. And here we have some more options. I kind of like this one. These are getting a little fried here, but it's the most carrot shaped. So I'm going to bring this back in. All right, that's a good one. That's a fun one. These aren't really carrot shaped all that much. Yeah, okay, great. Let's take this one and do the same process here. Just cut it out, make sure everything else is off. And we can bring the carrot over here. So obviously you can now use these techniques to make anything you want for your scene, right? More icons, some trees, some decoration, some more textures. So I'm going to go ahead and do some of that, and then we'll be done and you'll be ready to do your own. All right, here's the result I'm somewhat happy with. All I did is I added a little shed with the techniques we discussed, made a tree, made some more veggies, and I made a new grass texture here. Everything else you see are just effects in Photoshop, so that's just a drop shadow here on the texture, something you could do in whatever game engine you use to make your game. And of course, I made some alternates for the textures, right? If it like touches an edge, I just masked it out here. Here's my sand, just made a little wave in there, or the grass, just cut out some leaves. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope your results are even better than mine. So if you have some experience in pixel art, you can, for example, get some inspiration from Stable Diffusion and then paint over it, or edit it in any way you like. As I said in the beginning, there's potential. Future models may be trained on some more pixel art, so I hope for that. And until then, if you enjoyed this video at all, I love all the comments I've been getting, all the likes and subscriptions. So, I mean, I just hit 4,500 subscribers today, so that's amazing. I'm so glad I could help you with this, and I hope I can in the future. So, if you want more from me, just hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you very soon. I'm Albert Bosezan, and have fun with Stable Diffusion.